3 weeks before our 5th anniversary, Amanda told me she wanted to throw a big party. It surprised me. Not because we were the celebrating type we used to be in the early days, but because things between us had grown stale. We weren't fighting exactly, just drifting. You know that feeling when someone you once couldn't stop touching now barely brushes past you in the hallway without a word? That was us. We lived together, ate together, sometimes even slept in the same bed, but it was all hollow. Still, when she said she wanted to celebrate 5 years of marriage, she had this strange light in her eyes, like she'd already imagined every detail. I was tired from work and didn't think much of it. Honestly, I was just relieved she seemed excited about something. That was my first mistake. She started planning immediately. Guest lists, catering, even hired a DJ. I'd come home from 10-hour shifts, and she'd be at the dining table with her laptop, typing furiously, flipping through her little notebook filled with names, addresses, timelines. I remember watching her once from the kitchen. She was completely absorbed, smiling softly at the screen like it was whispering something only she could hear. I asked if she needed help, maybe with picking out the music or food. She just shook her head and said she had it under control. I believed her. I always believed her. I should have asked questions, not because I thought she was hiding something, although she clearly was, but because I owed it to myself to be present. I let her handle everything. She told me it would be at this venue downtown, something upscale, but not too fancy. I remember wondering who she was inviting, because I hadn't given her a list of friends or co-workers. But when I brought up casually, she said not to worry, that it was a mix of people from both sides. "It's a surprise," she added, with that smirk she used to give me when we were still in love. I should have pushed. I should have asked who exactly was on that list. But I didn't. Part of it was guilt. Work had taken over most of my life. The aerospace firm was bleeding staff, and I was handling 3 people's workloads on a salary that barely covered our mortgage. I was constantly tired. Amanda knew it. I think she resented it. Even though she never said anything outright, her way of dealing with things was avoidance. Mine was pretending nothing was wrong. It was a great system, until it wasn't. The closer the date got, the more distant she seemed, and not in the usual quiet way. She was always busy, texting people, taking calls in the bedroom with the door closed. I thought maybe she was just stressed, trying to coordinate everything. The night before the party, I asked if she wanted me to help set up. She laughed and said, "Just wear something decent and show up on time." That should have been a red flag, but again, I chalked it up to nerves. I didn't realize the party wasn't for us. Not really. I had no idea what I was walking into. The night of the party finally came, and I'll admit, the setup looked beautiful. Amanda had gone all out. Fairy lights crisscrossed the backyard in glowing strands. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers, and little tables dotted along with neatly folded napkins and gold-trimmed wine glasses. I recognized a few people from Amanda's work and some of her family, but most faces were strangers to me. She had a glass of rose in her hand and was floating from group to group like a hostess trained by a luxury resort. When I caught her eye, she gave me a quick smile, polite, detached, and moved on. I tried to settle in, sipping a drink, making small talk with one of her co-workers, when a shift happened in the air around us. It was subtle at first, like static. Then I saw Amanda's face. It lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Genuine joy, excitement, a kind of warmth she'd never shown me lately. Maybe had in a long time. I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw him. Kevin, 6'2", lean build, wearing some kind of sharp button-down like he stepped out a catalog. Confident, calculated smile. Amanda moved toward him like a magnet. She didn't even look back at me. I stood there, holding my drink, watching her wrap her arms around him. Not a quick hug, not the kind you give an old acquaintance. She held on for a second too long. When they pulled apart, her hand lingered on his arm, like it belonged there. My stomach twisted. Kevin. I knew that name. The same Kevin she told me about years ago, back when we were still new and fragile. I remember one night, early in our relationship, Amanda had gotten drunk and sobbed on my chest about him. She'd said he broke her, said he cheated, lied, wrecked her trust so badly that she couldn't even look at his name without shaking. I'd held her that night, told her she'd never have to go through that again. And she looked up at me with watery eyes and whispered, "I'll never let someone like him near me again." Now here he was, grinning in my backyard, the supposed ghost of her past, walking to the middle of our anniversary like he was the one being honored. I watched her talk to him, the way her body shifted slightly toward him, the way her laughter came easily, without restraint. She reached out and touched his chest when he said something funny. Her fingers brushed his sleeve like it was second nature. I couldn't hear their conversation over the music and chatter, but I didn't need to. Her eyes said enough. What stunned me wasn't just Kevin being there. It was that she had never mentioned inviting him. She had planned this party from top to bottom, claimed it was for our anniversary, and never once had she said his name. Not in passing, not even as a heads up. Just left it out, like he was some minor character who happened to show up. But this wasn't coincidence. The way they looked at each other, there was history there. Charged, unresolved history. As they kept talking, I noticed guests glancing over. A couple of Amanda's friends were whispering and smirking. One of them caught me looking and quickly turned away. That's when I realized I might have been the only one who didn't know. Maybe everyone else had seen this coming. Maybe I was just the last to understand the real reason for the party. I stood still for a long time, watching her laugh and toss her hair, nodding at whatever story Kevin was telling. She hadn't looked at me that way in years. Not even close. And for a moment, I couldn't decide which part hurt more, that she had invited him without telling me, or that her entire demeanor changed the second he arrived, like she had been waiting to come alive and just needed the right spark. I didn't say anything. Not then. I just took another sip of my drink and watched the woman I married turn into someone I didn't recognize. By the time the sun had started dipping behind the fence, casting long amber streaks across the yard, I was still manning the grill like some unpaid caterer in my own anniversary party. Smoke curled up around me, the smell of charred meat clinging to my clothes, and sweat beaded on my neck despite the cool breeze settling, and I flipped the burgers, checked the chicken, tried to focus on something. Anything. That wasn't Amanda and Kevin sitting together across the yard, flanked by our closest friends like it was some cozy reunion I had no business being part of. I kept glancing over, trying not to, but I couldn't stop. It was like watching a car wreck in slow motion, and no matter how badly I wanted to look away, my eyes kept dragging back to patio. Amanda had settled into the cushioned love seat next to Kevin, her legs crossed, wine glass balanced on one knee. Cassandra and Julie were there too, along with a couple of her other friends I only half recognized. The drinks were flowing, and the laughter had grown louder, looser, edged with that reckless energy that people get when they've had one too many and start saying things they shouldn't. I heard them before I saw them. Cassandra's voice carried, always too loud, always half a sentence away from something cruel. "Amanda," she slurred, the sound of her name broken by hiccups of laughter. "You're a genius, girl. Like, seriously, backup plan right at the party. If Nate ever screws up, boom, Kevin steps in." I froze. At first, I thought I'd misheard. I wanted to believe I misheard. But then Amanda laughed. Loud, full-bodied, unfiltered laughter. The kind she hadn't shared with me in months. And that silence that should have followed, that quick, "Oh my God, no, it's not like that," never came. She didn't correct her friend. She didn't deny it. Didn't glance my way. Didn't do anything. She just laughed. Then Kevin leaned forward, close enough that Amanda didn't have to move an inch to hear him, and said, smooth as anything, "I'm available if needed." More laughter. Julie clapped her hands like it was the funniest thing she'd heard all night. I heard one of them say something like, "Well, he is an upgrade," followed by a high-pitched cackle. I felt something in my chest twist so sharply it felt like my lungs folded in on themselves. They weren't whispering. They weren't hiding it. I was 20 feet away, standing behind the grill, and they spoke like I was invisible. I didn't say anything. I didn't storm over. I just stood there with the tongs still in my hand, staring at the fire while my heart pounded in my ears. The smell of the food turned sour. My hand shook slightly, not from heat, but from something colder, deeper. Betrayal doesn't always hit like a slap. Sometimes it's a quiet, creeping freeze that settles into your bones when you realize the person you thought had your back is laughing about replacing you. There was no awkward silence after the joke. No one seemed uncomfortable. It wasn't just a joke. It was normal to them. Casual. Expected. And Amanda, my wife, didn't bat an eye. She didn't defend me. She didn't look ashamed. If anything, she looked amused. Pleased, even. Like she liked being seen that way. Desirable, in control, with a backup plan waiting in the wings. In that moment, something inside me shifted. Something permanent. The line between "we're just going through a rough patch" and "I'm being made a fool of" had been drawn in the open, right there on our patio, under strings of lights I paid for, surrounded by people I didn't even know. And the worst part? No one noticed I was listening. No one cared. I didn't hesitate. I didn't pause to think it through, or weigh the fallout, or rehearse what I was about to say. I just set the tongs down on the grill ledge, wiped my hands on a towel that suddenly felt too clean for the kind of dirt I just stood in, and started walking. My heartbeat was steady, almost eerily so. Each step felt deliberate, like I was following a line I'd drawn in my mind without even realizing it. I crossed the yard, past the scatter tables, through the little clusters of half-drunk guests still chuckling at jokes they forget by morning. I didn't look at them. My eyes were locked on the patio. Amanda spotted me first. She turned, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of something behind her eyes, hesitation, maybe even nerves. But when I smiled and said, calm as anything, "You know, that's actually smart planning," she relaxed. Her mouth curved into this grin that didn't reach her eyes, like she thought I was joining the game. Like I was one of them now, Kevin looked at me with a sort of smug curiosity, legs crossed, drink in hand, clearly enjoying the spotlight. Amanda tilted her head and gave a little laugh, still riding the high of whatever delusion she'd wrapped herself in. "What do you mean?" she asked, playful. I kept my voice level. "I mean having a contingency plan. A backup husband. Makes sense, right?" I looked around the patio. Cassandra froze mid-sip. Julie's smile evaporated, and a few others started to glance at each other, unsure now where this was going. Amanda still hadn't caught on. She leaned back slightly, her confidence ballooning, her posture easy. "Well," she said with a shrug, "you never know." She actually said that. "You never know." I reached down and slid my wedding ring off. Slowly, deliberately. It came off too easily. I'd worn it for 5 years. 5 long years of shared bills, shared space, empty silences, and now shared betrayal. I didn't even glance at Amanda again. I stepped forward, past her, straight to Kevin. He shifted in his seat, eyes narrowing just a touch, as if he wasn't sure if I was about to shake his hand or punch him in the jaw. I held the ring up, then dropped in his palm. No words, no ceremony. Just a dull click of metal on skin. "Tag in, man," I said. "She's yours now." And then it happened. Everything stopped, like someone had sucked the air out of the entire backyard. The music cut out. It hadn't, but it felt like it. The clink of glasses, the background chatter, the hum of laughter, all went silent. Amanda's face went pale, drained like someone pulled the plug on her blood flow. Kevin sat still, his hand frozen with the ring in it, like I just handed him a live grenade, and he had no idea where to throw it. Cassandra stared at me, her mouth slightly open, and for once she had nothing to say. Julie's hand covered her mouth like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. No one moved. No one laughed. I didn't stay to see what happened next. I turned and walked through the house, not even bothering to look back. I stepped inside, past the decorations Amanda had fussed over, past the half-empty wine bottles and appetizer trays, past the photo display of our 5-year journey that now felt like a collection of staged snapshots from someone else's life. My footsteps echoed in the hallway. I grabbed my keys from the bowl near the front door, opened it, and stepped outside into the quiet street. No shouting followed me. No footsteps. Just the door closing behind me and the hollow silence of a party that had finally remembered what it was supposed to be about, or maybe realized what it had become. I didn't go far that night. Just enough. Just far enough to be away from the house, the patio, the wine glasses, the stunned silence still echoing in my ears. I drove with no real destination, ended up at Logan's place, my younger brother, the only person I could stomach seeing. He opened the door in gym shorts and a hoodie, saw my face, and didn't ask a single question. Just stepped aside and said, "You want the couch or the bed?" That's the thing about siblings. You don't need words when the look says everything. I crashed on the couch, still in my jeans, eyes wide open in the dark, staring at a ceiling fan spinning like it had cut straight through the mess I was drowning in. My phone buzzed all night, over and over. Amanda. First it was, "Where are you?" Then, "Let's talk." Then the kicker, it was a joke. I didn't answer a single one. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say that didn't taste like rust. By 3 a.m., she was calling. By 4, she'd stopped. By morning, I already knew I couldn't stay in limbo. I had to go back. Not for her. Not to talk. Just to pack. I drove back to the house around 9 a.m. The neighborhood looked exactly the same, like it hadn't witnessed a damn thing the night before. Morning sprinklers hissed in the neighbor's yard. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere, someone was mowing a lawn. Our house sat there, too clean, too calm, with decorations from the party still fluttering like nothing had happened. Amanda's car was gone. Good. She was at work. Inside, the house felt gutted in a way I couldn't explain. Like everything was still there. The furniture, the pictures on the wall, even the faint smell of last night's perfume. But the core had been hollowed out. I walked straight to the bedroom and pulled out a duffel bag, opening drawers with mechanical precision. Socks, shirts, toiletries. I moved fast, not because I was in a hurry, but because slowing down meant thinking. And then I saw it. Her tablet was on the nightstand, charging, screen still lit, unlocked. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I thought about privacy or dignity or boundaries. But I didn't, not even for a second. I picked it up and opened the messaging app like I'd done 1,000 times. The first name that popped up was Kevin. Dozens of threads, hundreds of messages. I scrolled slowly at first, then faster. The timestamps went back months. I stopped breathing around late February. It had started small, innocent, even, hey, long time no talk kind of thing. Harmless catching up. Old friends. That was the tone. But it shifted message by message until there was nothing harmless about it. There were late-night texts, her saying she couldn't sleep, and him replying within minutes. Long, winding conversations about her dreams, her regrets, how lonely she felt, how Nate is kind but doesn't see me anymore. That one hit hard, like a punch through the ribs. And he was good, calculated, always saying just enough, never pushing too far. You deserve to be seen. I've always admired your strength. If I had the chance again, I wouldn't screw it up. But Amanda wasn't just responding. She was opening herself, bit by bit, message by message, telling him things she hadn't told me in years. Her frustrations, her boredom, the small cracks in our marriage she never once brought to my face. And then the meetups, lunch near your office, coffee after the gym, just an hour, I promise. Always framed as casual, always wrapped in plausible deniability. But they weren't innocent. You don't meet your ex in secret for coffee while your husband is working overtime to keep the mortgage paid and call it nothing. There were no nudes, no sex, no blatant physical evidence. But it didn't matter. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't curiosity. It was worse. It was emotional intimacy buried behind my back for months. A parallel connection she nurtured like a plant growing in the dark. She didn't just test the waters. She'd been building a raft of quiet, careful way out in case she ever decided I wasn't worth the weight of staying. I set the tablet down like it had burned me. My hands shook, but my chest was ice. I looked around the room. The bed we'd shared, the pictures on the wall, the closet with our clothes side by side, and none of it felt like mine anymore. It was all part of the stage I'd been living on, without knowing I wasn't even in the lead role. I finished packing, zipped the bag, walked out. Not once did I look back. I sat in a divorce attorney's office less than 24 hours after reading those messages. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, didn't need to. My mind was quiet in that unnatural way it gets when the decision's already been made. This wasn't a reaction. It wasn't revenge or spite or theatrics. It was clarity. 5 years of marriage. And the most intimate thing I felt in the last 6 months was the moment I slipped off that ring and dropped it into another man's hand. No kids. We rented the house. Our finances were loosely entangled, but manageable. I told the attorney I wanted a clean cut. No drama, no spousal support, no tug-of-war over furniture or dishes or photo albums. Just done. He took notes, asked a few standard questions, and then leaned back, lacing his fingers over his stomach. He said Amanda had already reached out to legal counsel. She was considering options. I nodded. Of course she was. That's what people do when the lies collapse. Scramble for leverage. Within days, her lawyer came back asking for spousal support. $1,400 a month. The number hit like a joke I didn't find funny. Amanda hadn't worked full-time in over a year. Said she was focusing on her writing. Said she needed space to find herself. I gave her that space. Paid the bills. Took on extra projects. Never once asked when the income would start coming in again. Now she wanted a paycheck for walking away. My attorney didn't blink. He shut it down immediately, citing our nearly equal bank balances and her degree and job history. There was no case, and we both knew it. Still, they pushed. A week of silence, followed by a revised offer. She dropped the support request and agreed my terms. If I agreed to meet with her in person, just once. No lawyers. Just us. I almost said no. I didn't know her anything. But curiosity has shark claws, and some part of me, whatever small wreck of heart was still bleeding, wanted to hear what she could possibly say. We met at a diner on the edge of town. Public. Brightly lit. The kind of place that smelled like syrup and burned coffee no matter the hour. I got there first, ordered black coffee, and waited. She showed up 10 minutes late, wrapped in a cardigan I remembered buying her one Christmas. Her eyes were puffy, mascara already smudged. She sat across from me and didn't say a word for a long time. When she finally spoke, it was quiet. She said she was sorry, that she never meant for things to unravel like this, that Kevin didn't mean anything, that it was emotional stupidity, not betrayal. I just stared at her. She cried. Said she felt like I had stopped loving her years ago, that she felt invisible, that Kevin had been a mirror, not a replacement. She asked why I didn't fight, why I hadn't called, why I'd been so calm. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't call her names, I just told the truth. I said she never chose me. Not really, I was a safe bet. The reliable guy to fall back when life with Kevin shattered. She didn't pick me because she loved me more, she picked me because I was steady, because I showed up, and she mistook that for something romantic. She settled. And now she was restless. I said, you're free now. Go chase whatever it is you're still missing. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. Her lips trembled like she wanted to say more, but I stood up before she could. I dropped a 20 on the table for the coffee and walked out. No glance back, no weight in my chest, just a quiet realization that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the cure. It was just under 2 weeks after the divorce papers had been served when Amanda's friend Alicia called me. I hadn't spoken to Alicia since before the party. She was one of those friends who floated somewhere in the periphery of our marriage, always around for wine nights and weekend gossip. Never close enough to know the real inner workings, but always close enough to pretend she did. When her name popped up on my phone, I let it ring twice before answering. I didn't know what I expected, maybe some final insult, maybe more manipulation, but it wasn't what she said. You probably already figured this out, Alicia began, her voice low and matter-of-fact. But Kevin's gone. I didn't say anything. Ghosted her, she continued. Not just a slow fade, like blocked her number, blocked on social, gone. He was never planning to stick around. I closed my eyes and leaned against the kitchen counter at Logan's place, letting that sink in. It wasn't surprising. The writing had been on the wall the second I handed Kevin my ring and saw the panic flash across his face. He didn't want Amanda. He wanted the attention. The fantasy of being the guy someone was willing to wreck a marriage over. Once the illusion shattered, he vanished, because all that was left was responsibility, and he never signed up for that. According to Alicia, Amanda had been spiraling. She'd been calling mutual friends, crying, playing the victim, telling them she had made a mistake, that things had gotten confused. But nobody was buying it. They'd seen the party. They'd heard the jokes. They watched her laugh when I was standing right there. Nobody was falling for the rewrites. It didn't end with Alicia's call. The next day, I was going through a box of paperwork I'd taken from the house. Old receipts, shared bills, stuff we hadn't sorted yet, and I started seeing patterns. Credit card transactions. Dozens of them. Cafes, restaurants. Little places we'd never been together. Each one logged on dates she had claimed to be at work. I went back to my calendar, my texts, even work meetings I remembered. The timeline was obvious. These weren't casual drop-ins. These were planned meetings. Repeated, regular, and deliberate. I printed them out. 15 distinct outings over a 3-month period. All with Kevin. All while she looked me in the eye and told me she had deadlines, team meetings, creative blocks. All while I cooked dinner alone or stayed late at the office, thinking I was helping give her the space she claimed to need. There wasn't even anger left at that point. Just this cold clarity that the person I had married had been slowly, methodically cutting away the threads of our relationship behind my back, while still sleeping in our bed, still sharing morning coffee, still saying love you out of habit. The final call came late that evening. Logan's phone lit up. Amanda. He was in the shower, so I picked it up. I didn't speak at first. I just let her say hello 3 times before I finally answered. It's me, I said. A pause. Then her voice cracked. Nate. I didn't know who else to call. She didn't ask where I was. Didn't ask to meet. She just started talking. Apologies. Excuses. Half-formed sentences that didn't add up to anything. Something about how she wasn't thinking clearly. How Kevin misled her. How she missed me. How everything was so quiet now. I let her talk until she ran out of breath. Then I said what I'd needed to say for months. We're done, and this time I meant it. It didn't happen quickly, and it didn't happen because I was looking for it. After everything with Amanda, I wasn't interested in fixing anyone or being fixed. I wasn't chasing healing in someone else's arms or hoping to rewrite the past with a new face. I just wanted quiet, honesty, Something unremarkable in the best possible way. That's how I met Simone. She worked as a data analyst at the hospital downtown. Meticulous, composed, the kind of person who thinks before she speaks and listens without waiting for her turn to talk. We bumped into each other at a bookstore of all places, both reaching for the same paperback. I let her have it. She made a joke about algorithmic fate, and somehow we ended up at a coffee shop across the street an hour later. No expectations, no hidden motives. Just two people talking like they weren't in a rush to be anywhere else. We kept it simple at first. Coffee on Saturdays. A few texts during the week that didn't feel forced. Then dinners. Long walks. No pressure, no pretense. Just consistency. That was what struck me the most. She didn't play games, didn't withhold affection, protect her ego, didn't dangle compliments like bait. She made space and kept it open. When she laughed, it was real. When she asked about my day, she actually listened to the answer. I told her the truth early on. About Amanda, about the party, about the moment I slipped off my wedding ring and handed it to the man who thought he could replace me. She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me, either. She just nodded, like it made sense, like she understood, without needing it to be poetic. She said, that kind of pain doesn't need fixing. It just needs time. And then she gave me time. We never talked about titles, never marked a start date on a calendar. Things just evolved, comfortably, naturally, the way things are supposed to when neither person is playing a role. One night in September, we were sitting on her porch after dinner, legs tangled on a faded cushion, the air warm and still. She looked over at me and said, "You seem at peace with yourself." And she was right. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't calculating what silence meant or wondering who she was texting. I wasn't holding my breath or reading between the lines. I was just there, steady, grounded, present. I hadn't realized how much of myself I had lost until someone gave me the space to see what was left. Weeks later, Amanda messaged me. A long, winding apology full of self-reflection and softened regrets. She said she hoped I was happy, that she was sorry for how things ended, that she had made mistakes she couldn't undo. I read it once. Didn't need to read it again. I replied with 2 words. I know. Then I deleted the thread. For good. That party in the backyard, the one where everything shattered, used to feel like a funeral. Now it feels like a reset. Like the moment I finally stopped surviving a life I never really chose and started living one I did with someone who chose me first, without backup plans, without doubt, without pretending, just me whole enough finally.